So very quickly, the way we define community organizing is that it's ordinary people participating in active community institutions where they discuss politics and ideas as they work for a better neighborhood, city, state, nation, and beyond. And so and a lot of my experience, and I think the experience of that traditional organizing, is that one of the things that you do is you build a political institution and a political home for people to act in the political process. Some of the essential elements that we see in community organizing, and this is not to see it as a model in some sense, but more about like what's essential to make it work, is that people not only share problems, but they share and define the solution to that problem. And the solution in the language of organizing would be the issue. So if the problem, the example here, is that I have a lack of affordable housing, the solution that people could define is to preserve local rent regulations. They could come up with other solutions, but the idea is that the issue is not the problem, it's some solution that people agree to. And that the leadership of these organizations is led by the people who experience the problem and its solution most directly, the constituents, and that they actually lead the organization. Within the organization or the group or the project, whoever these things are played out, people have relationships, real relationships, we call them public relationships, where they really get to know one another, they get to know one another's hopes and dreams and aspirations. And together they work out a strategy, the kinds of actions and tactics that they want to use in their organizing. They talk very openly and directly and clearly about power, and they spend a lot of time analyzing power dynamics, their power in relationship to other forces, and that they're part of a political movement, a movement for social justice, that no one of the community's problems operate in isolation from anyone else's, and that the work around that. And I think this is a very distinct thing over the last, maybe 10, 15 years, is that it's very much a part of the work of the community organizations that we see coming up, and particularly, I think we have lots of examples even here in the room of that in New York City. One thing I just wanted to just take a minute to just lay out, which I sort of jotted up here the outline of, I think hopefully will help our conversation today about some of the relationships between traditional organizing and online organizing, is that the organizing process, the way these essential elements, these things about leadership, led, strategy, relationships come out, is that there's sort of two distinct phases to the process. One is that distinct but happening simultaneously all the time. One is that you're always building a base, identifying who are the constituents, who's experiencing these problems, who wants to come together. It could be geographic, it might not be. You're recruiting people, you're bringing them into the organization by getting them involved, giving them decisions to make, things to do, they have a role, and then you're listening and identifying and developing leaders. I'm talking here clearly from the perspective of the organizer. Somebody who's doing this work is saying, okay, where am I going to find people? Let me go out and find them, build a list, get people in, get them to do something so they have some ownership, and then from that I take a look and say, okay, who can really develop as a leader? And then the organization has all kinds of things in place, training, skills, opportunities for people to develop their particular kind of leadership. And then you move the base to action through campaigns. A whole phase of developing a campaign, researching what the problem, the details of the problem, identifying the issue, figuring out what's the power analysis here, what can we win, what can't we win, what kind of tactics are we willing to use in this campaign, what are our financial resources to do it, what kind of staffing, what kind of leadership. Then we implement the campaign based on the plan that is developed by the constituents in working with the staff members. Then that's where things hit the street, you have actions, you're interacting with public officials, whoever the targets of the campaign are, and then there's evaluation, which again is ongoing, but at some point the campaign ends and you decide it's over, it's not over, you won, you didn't win.